Welcome to Resonance Radio.
What sort of ideas should we talk about?
Ideas that resonate.
I like it. Liquid gold.
All right. So, before we started, where's our computer screen? Where'd that go? There it is. We are discussing the Bashar Spacetime Antenna. So, for many years, I have wanted to experiment with this thing. First presented by Bashar as a way to. I mean, there's a lot of different ways, directions, angles you could look at it from, but the area that interests me is as a mechanism to somehow down convert energy from the 0 point fields into a usable human scale source of energy. And what we're looking at here is an attempt that someone made at manifesting the description that Bashar gave of how the geometry of this coil or this antenna, which is two interpenetrating cones that have like an angle of 33 degrees, where the points of each cone are connected to the base of the other cone.
So it's a coil.
It's a coil.
It's a conical coil.
Yeah, double conical coil.
A double conical coil.
A three-dimensional coil.
And what does this have to do with resonance?
Well, I mean, it seems like the whole premise of it is a resonance. So the idea is that you can kind of jumpstart this thing by providing a current to it.
A current. That
will set up a resonance, and that the resonance, if the geometry is right, according to Bashar, assuming various variables, geometry, material, maybe other unknown things, that a self-reinforcing resonance will occur because it's somehow resonating with universal energy in such a way that it's
let me something that occurs to me. It's like a coil functions in relation to the right hand rule, right?
Okay.
So if you apply your right hand to this coil, it directs it in this direction. So you've got two coils, in a certain sense, two different conical coils. One of them is collapsing, the other one is expanding. But the current's moving in one direction. So it's like, I guess it seems to me like there's something strange going on there.
Well, I would assume that if a resonance were to start in it, that current would be going back and forth, like an AC current, more like an AC power source rather than a DC. I don't imagine, you know what I mean? Because the question then is like, what is the nature of the resonance? Is it, because I could imagine it could be mostly a voltage resonance, which would then have little or no current. You know, I mean, you could imagine this some kind of fluctuating positive negative voltage differential. You could have that with almost no current, almost like a fluctuating capacitor. But the other way of thinking about it is that it would have current flowing, but it would be first, the current would go one direction and then the other direction as the voltage goes back and forth. I would assume that there would be a current flowing back and forth. But these are all the questions that are unknown without. I mean, there are a bunch of YouTube videos of people that have experimented with this and do have like oscilloscope readings and stuff and do show, readings, which I have not gone down the rabbit hole of yet.
Tell me more about what you're saying, that you could put an alternating current in this thing. What would that look like? What do you mean?
Well, I see two different ways of doing it. Well, right. Well, first thing is I was saying, like, I could imagine if the thing is resonating on its own.
Yeah.
I would imagine that resonance being similar to an AC in an alternating current form. So if you were to measure it, if you were to put an oscilloscope on it, you'd see a voltage going positive and then negative. Positive, negative.
And why would it do that? Just because it would need to do that, I guess, to even exist. I
mean, that's to be in resonance. Usually, resonance has like in the water in a bathtub. It's like you have your static water level, but once the water's sloshing back and forth, if you measure it at any given point, the water level's higher than that and then lower than that. So it's like plus minus it's going plus and minus in relation to neutral. So if you were measuring current, and I would imagine that, like, in order to measure current, you either need to put like a caliper around a conductor, and then it's using induction to measure current passing through, or you need to actually put your measuring device in circuit to measure current running through. And so if you imagine it as putting, let's say, a shunt in the path, I would see it as like a sine wave. It's current going this direction, and then it comes to a stop, and then current going the other way, and then comes to a stop. So similar to the water in a bathtub sloshing one direction than the other.
And how does that relate to the geometry? It's like one direction is one coil and then the other direction is the other coil, and so it's like,
I don't know. Well,
is that what's going on?
One direction is one coil. Yeah, because technically each coil, if you look at the direction of the curve, if you were to separate the two cones and put them on their base, on their wide base next to each other, they would have the opposite turn. Right. So there's something important about that.
I know, right? It's that right-hand rule. It's like one is going this way,
right?
But the other is, I mean, they're both going in the same direction in a certain sense, but one is approaching a tighter coil, and the other one is approaching.
When you say they're both going in the same direction, in a sense, what do you mean?
The current within the.
So if you're imagining it as a system and you're saying current is running through it, you're looking down on it. Current is flowing, let's say, clockwise at a given moment.
Right.
It's flowing on one cone down to a point.
Right.
While simultaneously flowing, same thing, from the outside down to a point, but upward, going in the same direction, clockwise direction.
But is it flowing that way? Wait a minute.
Yeah, it would be because
If you have I guess I'm thinking in terms of if you applied an induction coil around the center.
okay, well, yeah, that you're
That
adding another piece to a system,
yeah.
but you can. I think it's useful to just imagine the current flowing just in this piece without adding a separate system, right? So this is where we get into. I think that to me makes sense as a way to stimulate it and or extract, to add energy to it or extract energy from it in in an induction way.
Is that would that does that result in a different pathway for the current?
No,
Same pathway.
because, well, see, this is where I think it's better to just stick with just imagining current in the coil without adding another system,
Yeah.
because when you say add another pathway for the current, well, no, because a second coil is a separate system, right? It's still, that's why you're complicating
But
the
I guess
mental
I'm
model.
saying if you have a battery, let's say you got a 12-volt battery here, right?
Okay.
And you cut this coil anywhere along this thing. Let's say right here at the
Okay.
top.
You don't need to cut it in order to add charge to it from a battery. You could just have an exposed surface on each end. That's what I would think you would
An
do.
exposed surface on each end.
Yeah, because you want this thing, like, in order for it to resonate, it has to be connected to itself. If you disconnect it, then it's not going to be able to, like, it needs to be continuous as it is in this form.
But like a light bulb, if you have a light bulb, you
Yeah.
need a battery which current flows from one side to
Right,
the other.
but a
side
light bulb
passing
is
through
not
the
an
bulb.
antenna,
No.
right? Well, okay. So you have two conductors in the light bulb, yeah.
Yep. So that would be if you, in other words, if you apply direct current.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted your thought experiment. Go ahead. So if you were to cut the thing,
Yeah.
then what?
And hook up one end of the positive end of the battery to one end and the negative to the other end.
So you cut it, let's say at the top of this diagram,
Right.
separate it,
Yeah.
and then attach plus here and minus here.
Right. What does that do?
The problem is that you then have a short circuit,
Right.
right? Because you're running current from the positive of the battery through the thing and then out to the battery at the negative end, and you're just running.
You're creating a light bulb.
You're treating it like a light bulb, and there might be something interesting about that, but to me, you're not. That's not. You're canceling. You're interfering with allowing it to resonate.
Right. Yeah. No. I
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
But let me counter your thought experiment with a similar thought experiment. Okay. So instead of cutting it, keep it intact, but you have, like, the idea is this is supposed to be insulated wire.
Yep.
But let's say you expose a section of that where it goes from the point of the cone out to the base of the cone.
Yes.
Expose a section of that to then be able to touch a wire to it.
Yeah.
On both ends.
Both ends.
Meaning where the bottom point extends out. So here, like on this bottom section.
Yeah. And up here.
And up at the top.
Okay.
So expose 2 points.
Yeah.
And then momentarily touch a positive and negative of a battery to it.
Yeah.
You would momentarily generate a voltage differential,
right?
And even current,
yeah.
to allow some charge to build up. But you'd release it to allow that pulse to basically reverberate through this thing. And what I would imagine is it would set up this kind of like the bathtub sloshing. It's just a similar idea, is you can use your hand to like set a pulse in the water. You could imagine it even just as one push. If you just put, like, the bath water is still, you put your hand in at one end, you run it to the other end, and then that sets up a sloshing effect that then just keeps going for a while.
Yep.
And eventually winds down, So that's what, theoretically, you zap it once with a DC battery at the very minimum, I think you would see some kind of sloshing resonance, of alternating. And if you had a voltmeter with, one measuring electrode on those two contact points where you added the battery, I would assume you'd see kind of a sine wave of voltage that would go first peak at positive and then go to negative,
But if you expose a wire here and a wire there, and they're exactly mirror images of each other,
Yep.
and you apply a current at both ends of that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it seems like there has to be a breaking of symmetry somewhere to establish a flow.
Breaking of symmetry. Okay.
It's like this is why it's much easier for me to imagine this with that an induction coil around the center.
Yeah.
Because then I can imagine, okay, that we're generating a current that is flowing with the right hand rule.
Yeah.
And it seems to have a breaking of symmetry.
Okay.
Because
it's, to me, the same idea.
Really?
Yeah, but here, are you imagining a DC current going through that driving coil, let's say?
Well, yeah, when you talked about a battery being applied across it. That's
right. And so what I'm not convinced is, like, in that thought experiment, that's implying that current is a DC current flowing through this thing. I'm not convinced that for this thing to resonate, it would generate a DC current. My imagination of this thing resonating is that it's doing alternating current, AC, and it would have an alternating voltage, a resonating plus sine wave going plus and then going into negative, and the same thing with the current. So I think if you were to put a driving coil around the waist of it, I think you would have to do the same thing, where either you're driving it with an alternating current or you're just touching it momentarily with the battery to set up to get a resonance started, and then you'd have to disconnect the battery to allow that resonance to happen, like the sloshing of the bathtub. Like, it has to be able to go in both directions.
Why would you need it applied at both ends then? Why not just at one end? And
well, voltage is plus and minus. You can't just attach something at one end. I mean, you'd have to have two exposed spots somehow, somewhere.
Yeah.
The obvious place to me, like, I guess to me, when I imagine this thing resonating, I imagine that resonance has an alternation, a positive, negative, like sine wave like thing over time, and spatially, or just like geometrically, to me, it seems like at any given moment, if you measure the voltage in this thing, it's going to be positive at one end at one point and negative at the other point, but that if you watch it over time, it's going to be sine wave. It's going to go positive and then it's going to go negative, That's what I like. To me, resonance has a sine wave nature to it. And trying to imagine a sine wave nature of resonance in this thing, that to me seems like where that's going to be the case, is most extreme at the points, or at those.
So the resonance is generated by the pulsing of the electricity. Or you're saying that
would stimulate it. That would be the what you call the breaking of the symmetry.
Yeah.
Right? That's the pulse. That's like the cranking of the motor of the old,
But are you saying that you just apply it one time and that would start it in motion?
Yeah, and so like what Bashar is suggesting is that this is tapping into some existing energy source of energy, there's, which I think of, it's easier for me to think of it as the 0 point energy field, that there is this, all these like wavelengths, like energy waves of all wavelengths moving in all directions simultaneously. That's how I think of the 0 point energy field. And so this is tapping into, like, if you start there, if your mental model starts with, there are waves of all wavelengths moving in all directions. Like it's
in the 0 point field.
That's my definition of 0 point energy field, right? If you start there, there's two infinities. There's an infinite number of waves, well, approaching infinity. There are waves moving in all directions, so that's one infinity of all wavelengths.
All wavelengths.
So that's
including this one here.
Right. And so what you're doing here is you're filtering, or you're tuning for, okay, yeah, there's waves moving in all directions of all wavelengths, but okay, we're going to filter for wavelengths that are kind of within this range of the spatial dimensions of this thing. And in these two axial dimensions. So we're going to filter for waves that are the symmetry. There's like a symmetry, waves that are counteracting each other in all directions. Like if waves are moving in all directions, they're basically all canceling.
Right.
And and if that's true, then the the little microscopic waves that are like the sub-Planck waves or whatever is almost like the noise in the system. It's like if the waves are moving in all directions and they're all of all frequencies, then they're also constantly canceling each other. So there's like this hidden, invisible energy that's there, and that we don't know it's there because it's all canceling each other. It's all just, but this gets into like gravity is a push idea. Like gravity is a very observable effect because large masses shield it to some degree. So that if two masses are next to each other, it's like those waves they're shielding the waves that are moving towards each other or pushing them. So there's less push from the inside of that line of orientation outward than there is
size,
and of that spatial dimension of the planets or the objects. So, or like the Casimir effect, where it's like having two negative, like oppositely charged plates that are close to each other. They're canceling out, or do they even need to be charged? I don't remember if the Casimir effect needs the plates to be charged or not, but which gets into polarization, which gets into like the fundamental waves of the 0 point energy are polarized in the sense of like positive negative too, right?
Anytime a virtual particle is created, it's got a particle and the antiparticle, right?
And then there's that, and to what's the relationship between particle antiparticle and positive and negative charge, anyway. But so this thing, like my sense of how this thing works is that it's somehow acting as both a filter and a conduit for what would normally be completely canceling waves. There's like this pathway for them not to cancel, like with these these coils that are fit together in this way. There's like a pathway to allow this energy to like get converted into human scale in such a way that it could be measured and interacted with.
Something about that I can't wrap my mind around, and this is one of many things, I guess.
Sure.
But it's like I have a bit of a handle on what a coil is in terms of like a motor. It's wrapped. They've all got basically the same diameter of the coil,
Mm-hmm.
but this thing has it's a conical coil,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I just have a hard time translating that into what the field is like. The It's like if you run a current through a coil, you generate a magnetic field, right? Is that, or wait a minute, if you generate,
I mean, it's an electromagnetic field, but yeah.
yeah. I don't know what. I guess I'm just wondering, what does this do to space time?
Yeah. I mean, that question right there gets into like how well do we understand what space-time is enough to then be able to postulate what it does to space-time. I mean, my sense of what Bashar is saying is that space-time is doing something to it, right?
Well, if it's doing something to space time, then if space time is doing something to it, it's got to be a reciprocal something.
Right. It's interacting with space-time in an interesting,
interacting with
novel way.
space time.
It's a space-time antenna.
But an antenna detects modulated information.
So I think this gets into what he was saying, where he was talking about, our conception of within our universe, there's this trade-off between traveling, at a speed approaching the speed of light.
Yeah.
There's this relationship between space and time. If you're stationary, you have a lot of time and no space. And if you're traveling really fast, you have a lot of space but no time. That's why this idea of someone travels close to the speed of light and then comes back, they would have aged less than someone who just stayed here, because that person traded off time for space. So this, the fact that Bashar chose to reference that concept in presenting this seems to suggest that this is somehow tapping into this zero-sum game of relationship between time and space. And I mean, I see that as kind of this interesting relationship between the outer cone, the outer cone and the inner cone, or the
base cone.
The base, the base of one cone and the point of the other, as representing like that's the extreme of it's all space and no time, meaning, the width of the thing is very large spatially.
Yeah.
And is then connected via that wire to no time, right? But then as you go down the cone, you're trading off to the point where at the waist it's like 50-50, and then you keep going, and then it's the opposite version. It's all time and no space, in a sense, but I think that metaphor applies to one cone. Like when you're at the base of the cone, it's all space and no time. The waves would be traveling slowly, let's say. And then if you're at the point of the cone, the speed, the frequency is very high. So you have a lot of time with no space. But then you combine the two cones together, and it's like it's like the mirror image of that is almost like getting rid of the cancellation of that. It's like assuming this base premise that there are an infinite number of waves moving in all directions of all wavelengths. That one cone concept of space and time relationship would be canceled out by the opposite waves in the other direction. And that's where the opposite cone comes in. It's uncanceling out, because it's trapping those waves that are the cancel waves and like moving it into a complementary flow, or something. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
Kind of. I only kind of know when I'm grasping at feelings. I'm trying to feel my way in the dark into an explanation of what's going on here. This is requiring the Toltec notion of left and right brain at the same time, feeling and thinking together. Like, I'm just feeling my way into an explanation of this in a way that's somehow resonant with the thinking side of my brain. You know?
It's curious because I look at this thing and I apply my thinking of what a coil is, and there's the mythology associated with this thing, and so I'm trying to find a mechanism which activates this thing, which gives it a dynamic. Right there is just this static structure, right?
Yep.
But I'm trying to find something which turns this into a dynamic picture of energy displacement, I guess. And why do we even think that this thing, is there anything about this which gnostically indicates that it has this quality, I guess? To me, it's like, and you know, there's a double helix going on here, right? There's all sorts of weird things going on here. And somehow it does have something about it that makes me think that it's real. I don't know. I know that's just blather, maybe.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
I don't know why it does that, but something about the asymmetry of moving from, I can't even describe it. Sorry.
It's okay. Feel your way through it.
I think I think of that text that I sent you with that image of that the guy had the ball with the was it argon gas in it or something like this, and like a neon ball, basically, right? And then he sat it on a coil, and it established a torus within that thing. And the ball is a container. And
so I have here an apparatus. It contains an oscillator, and an oscillator is just like a swing. And we're going to circulate a current.
Oops,
by the way, this
why
is
is
just
it not
a wire,
showing?
so we're going to have a magnetic field.
Hold up.
That circulates around
Stop.
here. Now that in itself might not be too
Stop.
exciting.
Where do we stop it? Why is the video here? Somehow my video stopped working. I'm going to pause. Okay.
So I have here an apparatus. It contains an oscillator, and an oscillator is just like a swing. And we're going to circulate a current. By the way, this is just a wire, so we're going to have a magnetic field that circulates around here. Now that in itself might not be too exciting. So I want to add one more piece. So this is a bespoke globe, 2 liters, filled with xenon and nothing else. And what I'm going to do is place this right there in the center. Okay, let's take the lights down. So now what we have is we've created an imbalance of charge that's now circulating around, and I can come in and touch and create some amazing things. This is a plasma toroid, and it forms and becomes a steady state inside of the globe. When you saw those little streamers, those little white streamers, when those streamers come back on the cells, I'm going to turn it down and see if we can't get the streamers back. It's going to float back to the top.
So this is chaos,
And so if
right?
I can get one of these to circle back on itself, it'll form a complete circle circuit, and then that will suck all of the charge in to form the plasma toroid we just saw. And there we are. It is thank you.
It kind of looks like those pictures of black holes.
It is completely self-sustained inside, and I just lower the power, and you can see it slowly rise up in case you didn't believe it's actually floating inside of the globe. And so this is Gasseau's fountain with the plasma toroid. Thank you.
Toroid.
So this, you were referring to this.
Yeah, just that somehow it's like the application of the coil and the shape of this container.
And look, there's a conical coil at the bottom.
Right. I mean, it seems somehow related, right?
Yeah.
And just I don't know what I'm thinking.
I'm going to here, let's pause for a second.
Yep.
Okay, we're back. So earlier today, before we started podcasting, we each created a wire conical coil spiral, and they're in opposite directions, such that if they're interpenetrating, then the coil would be moving in the same, or would be flowing in the same direction. But one interesting thing one thing I wasn't able to mentally imagine in my mental model of this is how to get these to interpenetrate, Would they need to be rotated in opposite directions or what? And one of the really interesting things that happen, hopefully we'll be good at, is they just kind of move. I mean, if their dimensions were precisely the same, you can just kind of interpenetrate them just by pushing them together. That's pretty cool.
It's bizarre.
It's bizarre to think about. I mean, this thing is now fully interpenetrated just by kind of moving them towards each other with no spinning.
If they were exactly the same length
Yeah.
and exactly mirror images of each other,
Yeah.
then at a certain out of phase, 180 degrees out of phase, they would pass through each other without any contact.
Theoretically, without touching. Yeah. It's there's something about that I think is relevant to this idea of this is tapping into resonance that's already there in a sense. In a sense, one idea that this is go back to the baseline idea. There are waves moving in all directions of all wavelengths. That implies that there's resonance in all directions and of all frequencies happening at all times. But it's all canceling out, so to speak, in our local scope, so it's invisible to us, right? In a sense, except for the interference pattern, which shows up as the subplank bubble, froth,
Right.
or the foam that then forms into the protons and is what keeps all the electrons moving all the time, and the protons spinning nonstop is being powered. It's the power source, as Nassim Haramein's talking about. It's the power source for the proton to just be spinning constantly, never ending. Talk about what's perpetual motion machine?
Yeah.
There is perpetual motion happening nonstop, which is why the protons all keep spinning continuously. There's something powering all of the atoms.
Right. Something is maintaining. I mean, that is one of the curious things about our our existence is that things spin for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Planets spin, protons spin, galaxies spin.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Is it? I mean, we just take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess you're saying that it's because. Why is that? I mean, maybe it's like this.
I mean, if the most fundamental particle of matter, i.e., the proton, is spinning, or there's a resonance pattern that spins,
Yeah.
right? Like it at the proton level. I mean, that's one thing I really appreciate about Nassim Haramein is the visualization that he brings to like these what is it, like the Planck scale
The
toroids
yeah.
as being like the pixels of space time, you know, and then the refresh rate of the universe is the time it takes for the proton to make one spin is this refresh rate. And I just, you know, I appreciate even just like his role in providing that storytelling or that narrative of what's going on at that scale, you know, is I think priceless or valuable, or I appreciate that. But yeah, so just looking at a single proton is there's a spin in a proton. There's a direction to that, but there's also like it's not just like a sphere that's turning like a planet. There's like this whole resonance happening, you know. So right, there's resonance happening. So back to this idea that there are waves moving in all directions of all wavelengths. That implies that there's this resonance at all scales and, you know, spatial scales or symmetry, you know, and that this, to what degree is this shape of this coil actually breaking that symmetry, you know? In a very precise way that allows that resonance that's already there, or one very precisely tuned for resonance, to then it's like the second cone, it seems like, is canceling out the cancellation that's happening all the time, and is allowing these two complementary formats or symmetries of resonance to get converted, down converted, up converted into human spatial scale, such that we can extract it into electricity that could be measured, or, you know, into a resonance that could be measured with our human subluminal time scale. Yeah. So we can put an oscilloscope on it and see something happening, you know. So I mean, the idea that I'm getting from Bashar is that the goal of this thing is that if it's done, oops, I was referencing it and it wasn't on the stream. Like, what I'm hearing from Bashar is if this is done with the right geometry, the right materials, all the ifs, if all the ifs are done right, then this thing, once you provide that pulse to it, it'll keep resonating. And the source of that resonance will be space-time itself, or aka 0-point energy, or these waves that are moving in all directions of all wavelengths. You know, the same power source that's powering the proton continuously, powering all the protons, all the particles of matter, would also be powering this thing. Somehow this is a way to like tap into that at a macro scale.
I mean, I remember Nassim Haramein was he mentioned something about perpetual energy machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That science in general, if they ever hear of a perpetual energy
Mm-hmm.
machine, they discount it right away.
Yep.
But he said, well, the proton is such a perpetual energy machine, right?
Or it's being powered by a perpetual. It's a perpetual motion thing, though.
Yeah, it has perpetual motion for whatever. Something is powering its perpetual spin.
Yep.
And you're saying that this something could also power the perpetual current flowing through this.
Yeah, I'm
on a larger scale.
Proposing that the same energy source that Nassim Haramein is pointing out is powering the proton and all of the particles of reality continuously. Yep. There's something there. In ancient spirituality, it's like the Om. It's like in the Bible, it's like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's like there's some primordial energy source that's powering reality continuously. This idea that it's all like there was this initial explosion and everything is just like in a state of decay from one initial, like, to me, that's BS.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Like, it's obvious that there is a continuous powering of everything happening at all times.
There was an urge to creation, which is still being...
It's still happening.
It's still happening. That original urge is
It is creating right now.
Yeah.
The proton is the energy source that's keeping the proton existing and powered. I'm proposing, or my understanding of the idea of this coil is that it's that same power source that is then being tapped into, or some correlation with that. The fact that this is on such a large human scale implies, like, what's interesting to me about this is that it implies that power source is not simply a sub-Planck scale wavelength, like that it's more akin to what I keep, this refrain of waves moving all directions of all wavelengths, like that to me explains gravity. And it explains, in a very vague, loose conceptual level, it explains entanglement. It explains whatever symmetry is there that enables the propagation of the potential, the vector potential to enable the wave to get through the screens, the filter, I'm referencing the quantum entanglement experiment that proved that there's something else going on, like there were what Carver Mead is talking about, the forward and backward time cone. There has to be some communication that's going from the receiver to the sender such that potential field forms across the spinning filter at just the right time, and that would only be possible, like, it wouldn't be possible if the amount of time it took, like the speed of light to pass through and back, would be too long. It would have to, like, that resonance would have somehow been forming prior to that filter moving into the right position to allow the pulse to happen. Like, this other level, this model of there being these waves moving in all directions, superluminal, like, they have to be superluminal too.
Tachyons.
That's a particle definition of it, yeah. Or like Nassim Haramein's talking about these sub-Planck waves that are moving at such a fast rate that they basically move across the whole universe and back within the time of a one proton spin, right?
Would you say that forward and backwards facing time
Time
cones.
cone, right? This correlates with that perfectly, right? I mean, that's this mental model that Carver Mead refers to. That's present in the existing, relativity, space-time, whatever theory.
You're talking about the paths, the cones of a particle moving forward that they. Is that what you're referring to?
I mean,
The what do you call those? Those are time cones, right? I mean, of space-time cones.
if you're referencing the same thing that Carver Mead was referencing, then I guess.
I think I am.
It sounds like neither of us understand it well enough to be very precise.
Well, it's what is it? Space-like or time-like paths of. Yeah, I don't understand that enough but I think I know what he's referring to.
I mean, it has to do with the resonance between the sender and the receiver of let's say an electron, right? When you have a filter in between that's filtering out, you have and it has to do with frequency because it's only a particular, like the comb filter, that's what it was. These spinning comb filters only allow a particular frequency to get through at a precise moment. And then the sender and receiver are resonance coupled, but the comb filter is interfering with that.
Well, I'm thinking of something different.
Okay. Well, but the time cones is related to this idea that if there was no comb filter in between, there's a resonance between the sender and the receiver that allows a pulse to send because there's a resonance there. But that to set up that resonance in the first place, if the sender and the receiver had no charge, let's say, there's this idea that in order for the sender to send to the receiver, this potential field would expand at the speed of light to enable a resonance to allow then a pulse to be sent. But what the comb filter was doing is interrupting that potential field to propagate, let's say. But that when the comb filter moved into the position where there was a resonance there,
for the double slits you're talking about.
It's not the double slit experiment. That's referencing a different experiment.
This is a variation of the EPR experiment.
Yeah, as far as I understand, there were two. Yeah. I think we would need to.
Yeah, I would need to review that
stuff.
Carver
exactly.
thing again, man. That's.
But the forward and backward in time is like of the light cone. There's it has something to do with this propagation of the potential field across that from the sender to the receiver, and that in without having some other notion of there being something there, like an ether or something, or a superluminal anything, there somehow is this mysterious resonance coupling message that would have to get sent in both directions in order for that potential to propagate at just the right time for that particle to get sent across that comb filter at just the right moment, right? The fact that it was able to cross with that comb filter spinning implied that there was some other communication happening. But because we only have light speed as our limit, that's where this backwards in time story shows up. It's kind of like it's a story overlay that needs to be there in order to explain things in within the limits that we place upon our explanation, which involves the speed of light, because we can't allow something to be there, or we just don't have stuff in our model that is faster than the speed of light. And so therefore time, somehow there needs to be some backwards in time communication happening from the receiver to the sender to allow the particle to get sent at just the right time to pass through the comb filter at this split moment in time when the comb filter is at just the right position to allow it to pass.
Yeah, I'm remembering now. So the comb filter it's like a comb with different 1 degrees or something like this, and 1 degrees, and they calculated the.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, all right.
And so it only, at any given moment, it'll like vary
It
the
creates
frequency.
A pulse, basically. Yeah.
What?
Or
Yeah, I
it
mean, language is
allows-
very important, right? It doesn't create the pulse.
Doesn't create it.
It interferes with any resonance other than, like, it's continuously changing the frequency of resonance that would be possible between the sender and the receiver. But the sender and the receiver only have very specific frequency that they would couple at. And so by having this comb filter spinning, it's a way of like having a controlling the spatial dimension of coupling between the sender and the receiver at any particular frequency. And somehow that was the proof that there's some other coupling that's there, because it would be impossible for that coupling to happen with our current models without having this forward and backward in time. You know, the backward in time is in there because we don't have something that is more instantaneous than the speed of light. We don't have a coupling, something that is coupling between the sender and the receiver at faster than the speed of light. Therefore, we introduce the story of backward in time, right?
Yeah, because we don't have any other way to explain it.
Right. And that's where I think this thing of superluminal waves somehow that are setting up this more fundamental layer of symmetry, coupling, whatever. Like E.T. Whittaker's paper back in 1905 or 6, where he was suggesting that the potential, electric potential is somehow derivative from interacting superluminal waves, which then correlates with what Nassim Haramein is talking about, these sub-Planck waves being superluminal, and there's it, yeah. I mean, the quantum entanglement experiments prove that there's something else going on. Now, there's all sorts of ways of explaining that, yeah.
Man, I need to review my physics.
I mean, this gets into the other conversation we had that was related to, what was it, the miracle of light, or this idea that, okay, even if there is this other more instantaneous symmetry of space and time, there's no way to actually, like, the idea of quantum communication. Like, so there's this thing of, oh, well, there's quantum entanglement, so therefore we can now invent faster than light communication. Somehow some kind of like communication system that's not limited by the speed of light.
Modulated information.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, what you were saying in that conversation is that we don't currently have the ability, like, it doesn't seem to be possible to send modulated information at faster than the speed of light.
Modulation implies, I don't think that it's ever going to be.
Yeah, because what is being modulated, it's space-time stuff.
Yeah.
It's stuff that is in this dimension that's limited by the speed of light inherently, because it's particles and charge, electric charge, and that propagates at the speed of light. And so how could you have modulation of that is not limited by the speed of light, you know.
I mean, the whole thing, it's like they talk about entanglement is a big factor in this, right? You've got entangled, you have two particles get released from an event, and they're entangled. But what is a particle? What is this particle that's being emitted? It's like a particle is also has an associated waveform with it, right? So the entanglement to me is just admitting that there's that underlying waveform, which these two particles are somehow resonating through that waveform.
Yep.
But there's no way to transmit, like I said, modulated information through that waveform after it's already been. It's just what it is. So that to me is. It's like the particle. It all boils down to what they talk about is non-locality. The particle is a non-local thing, and we detect a particle maybe, but we're just detecting it because our detector has the shape of a particle, in a certain sense, you know.
Yeah, but then so to me, this gets into consciousness, you know, and gets into, let's say, the thought experiment of, let's say telepathy is possible. Yeah. And let's say it's operating on this layer of reality, what, you know, subplank waves that are, you know, fast enough to cross the visible universe and back within the time of a single proton spin. You know, I guess the question is, are we able to measure fluctuations of charge, let's say, faster than what could be explained? What, you know, it's like, I don't know, it almost seems like there's so much noise, there's so much imprecision in our ability to measure and monitor a particle, or let's say an electron state, that even if there was some kind of interaction that was happening and modulating at faster than, you know, what the speed of light could explain, it would be so subtle and so fast that we would just think of it as noise. Like it's, I mean, I'm not being familiar enough with the apparatus that we have currently at play. It's, you know, I'm not making an empirical, you know, analysis of what capabilities we have or don't have. But to me, it sounds a little bit like, you know, Einstein debating Bohr about having let's say, a quantitative way to explain what's going on at the subatomic level, when our devices just are nowhere even close to being able to prove or disprove that, you know. Like, all we could even possibly measure was more of a statistical model of what's going on at that level. Whereas what Carver Mead is saying is, like, since that time, we now have 10 macro scale coherent systems that we can measure and study, one of which is a superconducting coil.
Yep.
And that having that access to that now enables very, you know, plausible quantitative descriptions of what's going on. And so I guess to some degree, I wonder if that's equivalent, or there may be something equivalent to that, and maybe even at orders of magnitude far more, you know, out of our reach currently, to then be getting at or talking about whatever the layer of reality that is happening in the quantum entanglement situation, such that we're nowhere even close to being able to validate or invalidate the possibility of communication happening. Telepathy or quantum communication, you know, faster than the speed of light communication. Like, our tools just aren't there to be able to prove or disprove that, you know. The fact that our tools aren't able to prove that that's possible doesn't mean it's not possible.
So faster than light communication. In other words, let's say that we're in contact with, or we sent off a spaceship
Mm-hmm.
that is now 1 light year away,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to be able to communicate with that spaceship
Mm-hmm.
faster than it takes for a year to transmit it if we were to send signals,
Yeah, or electromagnetic signals,
electromagnetic signals through
a laser beam, let's say.
space or something like
Yeah.
that. But I think yeah, I don't, my imagination can't wrap itself around some superluminal. I guess it could. You just say, well, it just gets there faster, right?
Yeah.
But then you would, what is translating the information at that point? What is it's like,
I mean, that gets into which is describing the device,
right?
which again is like what I'm saying is just because we can't do it doesn't mean it's not possible. I think it's maybe unwise to theoretically exclude it just because our current theories can't describe it. It's one of those paradoxical situations, and it's similar to like the Einstein versus Bohr thing.
So you're saying if we had like a Bose-Einstein channel that extended for a light year, that we could transmit information through that coherent material, maybe.
That's one way of modeling it. Another way is just two beings that are able to communicate telepathically like, to me, it's easier in some ways for me to imagine that.
Yeah, me too.
Than it is to come up with some description of some kind of technological device, because you're dealing like at that level. It's like, if that is the layer that consciousness is happening on, it's easier to imagine telepathy, because it's, or like remote viewing, it's, I think the experiments, well, I don't remember, I don't know as though but the experiments that I'm aware of, one of the experiments was somebody went in a submarine way under to the bottom of the ocean, and like no form of electromagnetic signals are able to communicate at that depth. The ultra long wave whatever radio or something, there's, I don't remember the details, but it basically proved that remote viewing is able to operate just across time and space without any kind of all of our current theories of Faraday cages and electromagnetic interference and blocking and all that is not able to explain. And so then there's also the question of, well, what if the speed of that does, like, if consciousness is able to perceive across time and space, spatial scales, that implies faster than the speed of light.
Right.
It implies that time and space is a very much speed of light thing.
Yeah, it's a construct.
Or
basically it's
a paradigm
or sense, yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's measurable, so it's not just a construct we agree upon. It does seem like there's some very
measurable.
very real it's like,
I mean, the laws of physics are very real. But in a dream you can fly.
Right. So it's like, just because it's a self persisting, it's a very persistent illusion, let's say, right? But is consciousness limited by that, right?
Right.
And if it's not, which I propose, my experience of it is it's not, then if the spatial dimension, it's not limited by the spatial dimension, it's probably not limited by the time dimension either, or the propagation of the speed of light as a limiter. Like, that might limit propulsion, that's classical propulsion, but that maybe doesn't limit.
I mean, what this kind of implies to me is that the mind is I keep going back to, I think it was one of Carlos Castaneda's books. He was questioning Don Juan about could he go to the moon,
Mm.
and Don Juan said, "Yeah, sure."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, most people they hear that and they go, "Yeah." It's like just saying you've done it though doesn't mean you actually did it.
Mm.
But and if I remember correctly, it was instantaneously. It's like you don't have to get in a spaceship and travel to the moon.
Your mind doesn't need to travel there at the speed of light to
right,
get there. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
It don't need to. It somehow we're there already.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's this resonance that's already present across all spatial and time scales already, or
Right.
spatial.
So that is a very strange thing to consider.
And that reminds me of Carver Mead's paradoxical statement of like the equation that describes the path of one electron has within it the paths of all the electrons in the universe. Like there's this instantaneous coupling between all the electrons in the universe,
Right. Yeah, there's a book called "There's Only One Electron," actually,
Right.
which I think is an interesting idea, and it's the one that you happen to be measuring at that moment,
Right.
or the one that you're thinking about, or whatever it's. But because that electron is everywhere in a certain sense and nowhere, but yeah, I think.
And what is an electron is some kind of resonance interference, resonance pattern of resonance between particles and waves, and
But you got electrons in water has electrons in it, right? I mean, the H2O molecule
every atom has electrons.
Has how many electrons? It's like it's a very strange thing to think about, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that relate to this now? What's
How did we get there? How did we get here from here?
Somehow I just think this structure. I think of this the virtual reality, the particles blipping in and out of existence, virtual particles.
Yeah.
Are always paired.
Mm.
They're always paired, and this thing is a paired structure. And it somehow I can't stop thinking that there's the breaking of symmetry, that this is not the equivalent of that, even though it looks the same. That somehow the flow of the current through this, if there's a right-hand rule, and you can generate if you put a coil around this thing to inspire current in this thing, it's moving. This end is different from that end.
Mm-hmm.
Radically different.
Definitely.
Yet how does it? What? It's like this can't stop there. In other words, in reverse, it's like it has to. It's like a wormhole, maybe almost in a certain sense.
Well, it can't suddenly do a 180, but it could slow down while the other one is speeding up,
What is that theory of wormholes? That every proton is it proton is a wormhole, or?
I mean, if you're I know Nassim Haramein has been describing using that terminology to kind of describe what's happening inside of the proton. Like he's attempting to describe the proton as, and then there's the metaphor of like the drain in a bathtub that's draining. That there's like a toroidal or like a vortex flow internal to the proton. that internally there's a wormhole, black hole, something, inside of the proton.
Yeah. I mean, a wormhole is it's a one-way street, basically. And somehow this to me, even though it has this visual symmetry, I get the sense that it can't be just a symmetric object with it's like you were talking about a resonance back and forth, but that just seems too contained for me. It's almost like it's a wormhole. Is that, I don't know, maybe we went off on
Well,
Carlos
sure.
Castaneda
No,
and everything.
that's great. I like that. It's a wormhole. So it's like a macro scale wormhole.
It's a macro scale wormhole.
But you seemed to play that as a contradiction to something I said, which was something about it varying between plus and minus.
Yeah.
Right? So how is what you're saying contradicting to that, or somehow not
But
able
does
to
a
be
wormhole vary
simultaneously?
between the two ends don't switch locations?
How do you know?
Well, I guess I don't know actually, but well, it's a wormhole is a black hole also, right? Is one end of a black hole.
Well, look, there's an empty space in the center of that thing. Who are we to say that empty cavity in the center is not where the wormhole is?
Right.
Or, I don't know.
I don't know, man. I'm just letting my imagination run here,
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I mean, what I wonder... I mean, one thing that's coming out of this kind of like what we're playing with, I feel like, is... oh, my camera just wigged out. Is DC versus AC. So what I'm talking about is kind of an AC. Like there's this voltage is going from positive to negative. Current is going one direction and going the other direction, and
like a motor with
like an AC motor, because there are also DC motors that are continuous.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
Right. But then there's like a physical switching of contacts to make that possible.
Yeah.
Whereas with an AC motor, you're able to have a brushless, like you're able to have an induction interaction with it without there needing to physically have contact switch between positive and negative polarity. But I've sensed that in some of your wrestling or playing with these ideas, there's kind of this, but the wormhole doesn't change direction, right? Implying that there's something about that alternating voltage and current that's somehow being a problem, like the right-hand rule, like you're wanting to see like that current flow continuously going in one direction.
Yeah.
And I guess to me the question then is, if this thing's resonating, if this is a resonator, to me resonance has a push-pull, has a back and forth nature to it. Something by its very nature has a sine wave in there somewhere. So if the current is continuous, that implies to me that the voltage is continuous, but maybe not. Like the thing about a coil is, a coil by its very nature tends to reinforce a current flow. Like once it resists getting a current flowing, but once a current is flowing, it keeps the current going. It resists stopping the current, right? So that suggests what you're talking about. Is that, well, maybe, okay, let's go down that road. Let's say the current is continuously going in one direction and not the other.
Yep. Which
it would imply a magnetic field that's in one direction. It kind of implies that there's a torus that's a continuously formed torus rather than one that's then collapses and then forms in the opposite polarity and then collapses, right? Because in like in an AC coil, that magnetic field is switching 60, like if it's powered by grid power, that magnetic field is flipping from, on a sine wave shape from north to south to north to south. That right hand rule is flipping back and forth. Whereas if it's continuous, current is just continuing to flow through that thing, and then that's acting more as like a filter. But so if that's true, then what would be resonating if it's not current? I mean, maybe voltage is resonating, but what else is there?
How does a black hole resonate? Does a black hole resonate? I mean, it.
I mean, everything is resonance at some level, right?
But I mean, a black hole has a current passing into it in one direction. It only moves in one direction. Is this? I don't know. Is this
the spin? You're talking about the spin.
Well, I'm talking about the direction of.
Or let's take that. Sorry, but would it be helpful to think about this thing? Like that seems to have, like that current is flowing in one direction continuously.
Yeah. Yep. That's only a single coil. Right. And I guess, but the fact that the double coil is potentially flowing in the same direction, yet in different end points. One is from a small wavelength to large wavelength, and the other is from large wavelength to small wavelength. And simultaneously. And
they're spatially complementary.
Yeah, something, I don't know. It's just just strikes me as a very strange asymmetry to it.
Yeah.
That is evocative of all sorts of weirdness.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting thinking about it in the realm of like, what if there was a current that was continuous in a sense? So like polarization that was perpetual in that one direction, rather than this back and forth sloshing like I'm imagining.
Is there anything about holding the coil vertical? I mean, the that thing, does he say that it should be maintained vertical?
I mean, when he describes it in the vertical orientation.
I wonder why that is. I mean, vertical is in line with, a radial point from the center of the Earth, right? So,
like Tesla's, what is it, Wardcliffe Tower? Wardenclyffe Tower or whatever. Yeah. Or the Schumann resonance of the Earth.
Yeah, just, I mean, all of that. It's like it's in other words, it's got a preferred orientation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm just...
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah. What if its preferred orientation is vertical in relation to the center of gravity? To me, that suggests that it's somehow like the thought experiment I was referencing earlier is, okay, if there are waves of all wavelengths moving in all directions, that explains gravity, right? And that then also would explain there being, what do you call it when there's a heat differential between hot and cold? You can then set up something that then... A gradient, right? Because gradient usually seems to be needed to extract energy.
Yeah.
Like...
Absolutely.
Our definition of energy is almost by definition some form of gradient.
Yep.
So if gravity is the gradient, that this thing is tapping into. Gravity is a space-time phenomenon.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to the interrelationship between, and this gets into my breakfast where I was like, well, what if this is also related to an anti-gravity effect, or a counter-gravity effect? Like, to what degree is having this whatever polarity, like if the current is flowing in one direction, like this globe, would it, and then turning it upside down or right side up, would it be heavier or lighter depending on which direction it's oriented?
Very interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, I guess my mind goes
that's
there.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a very...
And that relates to this thing, the names I don't have, but there's very vague references to this craft that was being created back in the 50s and 60s by the whatever private groups that had, triangular with these spinning conical things in the corner, and it it moved through space-time in a very paradoxical way. It just seemed to kind of like disappear here and appear over there, and had anti-gravity capability. Or there are these, within that space, there are these references to these craft having some way of like directing their gravity engines, where like if they're pointed down towards the planet, it keeps them up. But then once they go out into space, they'll then like rotate around and point in the direction that they want to travel, and then reverse it, and it like pulls them through space-time.
Holy shit.
So what if this
that
geometry...
would be an energy extraction device. In other words, it's like the energy that you're getting is inherent in the movement of this thing relative to space and time.
Right.
In other words,
so but this gets into, what if you pump energy into this?
Right.
Does it then get lighter or heavier? Like if its measured mass or weight changes depending on how much energy you pump into it.
Stick it on a scale and see what happens.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. But that implies that we could get it resonating. Like, to me, the first step is get it resonating.
Right.
Or get whatever it's designed to do.
Turn it
on. Yeah, turn it on. Get it going.
Where's the fucking switch on this thing?
Right. Pause.
What time is it? 4:10. Are we live?
We're live.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. What is a minute?
What is a minute?
It's an amount of variation, or
it's a minute variation.
Resonance. It's a resonance of a particular type of particle. What type of particle is now the atomic definition of time? Like,
atomic definition of time?
Yeah.
You mean the quantum time? Atomic clock based on... Oh, yeah, the cesium atom resonance.
Resonance, the resonant frequency of atoms, specifically the energy transitions between different quantum states of atoms. Cesium-133.
I think I like solar day divided by 24 divided by 60 divided by 60. I think that's a better definition.
It's a very imprecise definition of time you got there, Keith.
You don't like that definition? Thing is, I can relate to it. I mean, how many cesium atoms have you ever met?
Yeah. I'm sure we have cesium atoms in our body. We just aren't. They're so few and far
There's
between.
one right there.
Especially after Fukushima, you know,
Yeah, right.
fallout
Got a bunch of
rained
them.
all over California.
Right.
Oops, we're not supposed to talk about that.
No. We'll edit that out of the video.
Yeah.
That's important.
Uh,
So yeah, no, I think we had some interesting ideas. I don't know if any of them are right or anything, but
define right
right
and wrong.
and left. Wrong, man. That's negative. Just left. Left is good. Left is sinister. Sinistra.
Those leftists. you know.
Leftist. Oh yeah, leftists are pretty wacko nowadays, apparently.
That's what we're supposed to think. One side gets in, it's all the other side's fault, you know. So they're just playing us. Talk about a resonance. There's a resonance.
What is that?
A destructive resonance between left and right,
Yeah,
blue and red teams, you know.
gotten crazy, man.
Blue team, red team.
Yep. Oh yeah, thanks. This is good tea. White tea, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to grow tea on my property here.
Tea. What is tea?
It's there's a Latin name for it. It's
Is it a tree?
Yeah, it's a tree. My friend MJ was telling me about this. He showed me a photo of a tea tree in China that he visited that was like 2,500 years old. This
Holy
tree is like 150 feet high.
Whoa.
Yeah, tea trees.
You should buy a tea tree, man. That's a great
I
idea.
know. I want to grow several. Melaleuca alternifolia.
Melaleuca.
Oh, I'm not sure that is the
Tea tree oil?
essential oil one. I don't know if that's the same.
I wouldn't think so. Tea tree oil is very
Tea Latin name. Camellia sinensis. This sounds more right.
tea plant. They call it a plant. Is it a plant or a tree?
Well, I mean, my friend is a
It's
tea
an
master.
evergreen shrub. Evergreen is a tree. Evergreen shrub. Native to East Asia. Man, a 150-foot tall shrub would be a... I mean, there's a million different types of tea, though, right?
Well, yes and no.
There's herbal tea.
Well, right. If you exclude, like, but the word tea comes from this, like tea, caffeinated tea generally is this one
Is it?
plant.
Is pu'er tea is...
Pu'ers, yeah, black tea, green tea, white
that's
tea.
all from one tree.
Right. It's just different state. Like white tea is the very first when the leaves are just budding out and they don't have the chlorophyll in them yet.
Oh.
So that's white tea early in the season. Green tea is, I think, one stage, and also black tea. I don't know.
It's the oldest, probably.
Yeah, it's the oldest, but also there may be a treatment of it.
Huh. Yeah, you should order a plant. Grow a whole orchard. Surprised they don't show the tree.
Yeah, me too.
There's a leaf.
I think, what my friend was saying is that it's most of the time it's grown in like bonsai form in order to make it easier to harvest, but that by its
There we go.
its nature is more like a tree.
Tea harvesting. Those aren't tree-like at all. Those are shrubs.
Yeah.
Here you go, a tea plant. Can grow up to a tree up to 52 feet if left undisturbed. Oh, there they are.
Yeah. So it's an interesting idea. Oh, here we go. White, yellow, green, oolong.
Wilted and unoxidized.
So black is fully oxidized.
Fully oxidized. Huh. Post-fermented dark. Called puer. So puer is a fermented tea.
Yep.
That makes sense. Well, that was a hell of a podcast.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Venturing down the space-time antenna rabbit holes.
Yeah, I think there's something to this. So what's the next step, Thomas? When are you going to 3D print one of these things so that we can...
The next step seems to be learning the math, learning the math CAD. I forget the exact app there's like this type of CAD that allows you to use math to generate the object.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there needs to be some kind of like design file that's based on, the math and the angles and the spacing and the thickness of the wire to create the jig, to be able to generate a 3D model that can then be printed and then used as a jig to lay the wire out.
So you couldn't just use a conic section, right? You would need a spiral, basically, not a cone.
Well, I mean, the cone could be the base, but there needs to be the generation of the groove that the wire fits in.
But you'd also need to cut away everything except support of the groove so that you could merge that thing together. If you just had the cones, they wouldn't be able to merge, right?
Right. And so that's where I think it would be having a model where it's two pieces. One is the outer thing, so you wrap. I mean, it could be one piece, but I'm imagining printing it as two different pieces.
Yeah.
And putting it together, but you would wrap it in the grooves on the outside, and then there would be a hole to pass through. It would go through the hole, and then in the upper piece, it would be you'd wrap it around the outside of the inner cone, and then carry it out, and then wrap it down the outside of the upper cone, pass through the hole, and then flip it over, and then wrap it around so it would be basically just like the individual piece like one half would be, it would have the outer surface, and then you flip it over and it would have the inner surface. So like the outer surface would just be, just a cone, two cones interpenetrated.
But two cones,
just halfway.
Halfway.
Cut halfway. And then you put it together. Assemble, you print the two different prints, which would have the opposite direction spirals on them.
Yeah.
And then put that together. And then that would be it would be the jig, so to speak, but it also would just stay in there. Like it would be the substrate that the electromagnetic, that the wire is, it would just permanently be the part of the assembly.
The frame.
Yeah, the frame.
The frame.
So I guess jig is the wrong word, but it would be the frame for the coil.
Yeah.
To be
but
built on.
Is a frame an actual cone, or is it take the shape of that wire as a spiral?
I mean, I guess to me you're asked, like, that's a splitting hairs question.
Well, it has to do with when these two come together.
Yeah.
How would, if they're two cones, you can't.
Yeah, so you're not. Yeah, I'm imagining a particular thing that it sounds like isn't I'm not communicating well enough for you to know what I mean. But like, if you imagine, let's just imagine the frame as being fully assembled that you then could wrap wire on. Yeah.
Okay.
You could imagine splitting it right at the waistline of it.
Yeah.
And have two separate physical things that you then could open up, let's say, or I don't know, whatever way you want to orient it. It would be like the frame would be composed of two pieces. So does that make sense? So the two interpenetrating cones would be there if you put it together. Yeah. Like each piece would be the lower half of one cone and the upper half of the other cone as part of that piece. And then the other piece would be the lower half and the upper half of the other cone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, but I'm asking.
And it would have the grooves there so that you could wrap the wire into the grooves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you asking?
When you bring these together, like you demonstrated,
Yeah.
where this one fits within that one there. That only seems possible if it has this structure basically of a.
I see. What you're asking is, would you be able to physically put them through each other like we just did? No.
Yeah,
no. That would be based on the geometry of the frame design. Like if you wanted to play with that, you would print multiple different frames that had different levels of interpenetration.
Yeah.
In order to play with that, you wouldn't be able to just physically put them through like that. That's the way I'm thinking about the frame. Yeah. I mean, do you think that there's some benefit to being able to physically move it like that?
I think it strikes me as a more interesting object if you're able to do that.
In what way? For your mind and your hands
it's
to
like
play with?
It's like a puzzle, It's like a puzzle that fits together, It's
All right. Well.
But I mean, in terms of it, does it improve the functionality of this thing as a whatever it is, energy extracting device? I have no idea.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, the benefit of doing it as individual, precisely engineered and printed versions is you can precisely control for independent, like individual variables.
Yep.
If you want to have each cone sticking out by 2 inches, you change the equation, print the thing, wrap it, and then you have and then you know exactly how much it's sticking out so that when you measure the resonance, it's like just scientific process or engineering, process of you're controlling for each variable that way. So as far as like proceeding into this in a way that removes as many variables of unknowns, that appeals to me.
Yep.
At the end of the day, is that going to benefit any more than just having 2 coils that you can just kind of manually put at different positions? Like it might not matter,
right.
But I have a feeling it does. I have a feeling like the more precise the geometry can be, the better is my intuition on it. And so, but like, what if we just electrically connected these, like interpenetrated and connect them together and just like pulse it? Like, what if something happens?
I know. It wouldn't be that hard to do at this point.
Right.
Just 2 lengths of wire soldered in there.
Right. So, I mean, in Bashar's original transmission, he did suggest that there's a geometry that's bigger than what we've done that he said would be the minimum size needed to see the effect or to
fit within that pyramid.
Yeah. So I would just start, to me it makes sense to try to fit all of the information that was, the recipe that was given, try to conform to the recipe as closely as possible.
Why reinvent the wheel?
start there and then start making individual changes, you know.
Well, if I can help in any way as you're building this thing, let me know.
Aren't we doing this together, Keith?
Well, are we really going to do this?
Well, I guess this raises an interesting question, which is just the excitement to progress ratio, right? Which is in some ways just hand winding a couple cones that fit together might be easier to do to get started.
Yep.
Than me learning this like really complex and probably frustrating and, you know, mathematical CAD language that then like the ball's in my court on that. So, I mean, what would the next step be in the version that you're thinking of? Is just making two cones that just fit together? You know, I guess to me it would mean making a 33-degree cone that can then act as the substrate to wrap, to kind of form a self-standing cone around, or a coil around.
I mean, if we used thicker wire than this, it would stay fairly shaped.
Yeah, this is 12 gauge wire. We could use 10 gauge or, you know.
What about 8 gauge
or 6 gauge? Yeah, it just needs to be insulated. I'm sure there's 6 gauge solid core wire, right?
Do you know what gauge means in shotguns?
No.
12 gauge is the size of the barrel which holds 12 balls of lead, equaling 1 pound. So a 20 gauge is smaller because 20 balls would fit in there.
Yeah.
And they have 10 gauge, which would be 10 balls equaling a pound.
That makes sense.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Bit of trivia there that I felt the need to pass on.
All right, great.
But yes, so let's do that then. Let's just
as far as like
thicker wire,
more fun per time.
Yeah.
You know, space-time ratio. Yeah, let's try it again and try to make a cone that's 33 degrees and like the size, the height of what we're going for.
Right.
Wrap, wrap it.
How would we create the cone?
I don't know. Cardboard.
Needs to be fairly smooth.
I mean, that would be pretty easy to print, 3D print.
A 3D cone, yeah.
A 3D cone. Maybe that's a good starting point.
Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, and for that matter, that would also be a good first step at learning the spiral, like the groove. It'd probably be easier to learn to program, start with a cone.
Yeah.
And then programmatically create a little strip that, it'd be like, actually, gosh, I mean, it's reminding me of the monad wedge in our monad software.
The monad wedge?
It's basically like the monad wedge can do a single circle at any position on a sphere, right? It's using latitude, longitude.
Yes.
But is like a 3-dimensional structure. So it's very similar to that, except it's adjusting the latitude over the time horizon, and instead of on a sphere, it would be on a cone. So, and so what I'm imagining is you've got a cone, and then there's it could be a square, with walls and a top. It doesn't have to be round. Like the groove doesn't have to be like a smoothed out thing. It could just be
Could be it could be you could just swing that thing around.
Like create the vertexes and the sides, which I already have the code for that in the monad wedge.
Right.
Unity object. I could make a variation of that projects that onto a cone and then just spirals up to the tip.
How would we get it out of that structure? Would it
get it out of that structure?
So it would stay in the cone.
No, because what we're talking about is making two coils that we can physically
removed from the
yeah. I
the
mean,
cone.
I think like we would use that to wrap it if
Yeah.
we did this version where it's
Yeah.
where it has the groove.
Yep.
The groove wouldn't have to be very deep.
Oh, okay. So
You could just
pop
pop it
over,
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I'm imagining. But there would have to be 2 cones then, one of each
Yeah,
direction.
each chirality.
Yeah,
Yes.
chirality. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So, and if we really wanted to do it the quick and easy way, we just print the cone with knobs every half an inch.
Yeah, there you go.
And just wrap it around. And,
Right. Yeah, true.
Take what we get out of it, and
Close enough.
close
I'm
enough
sure.
for our first.
Yeah.
We
And the
could,
knobs could even be on 4 sides and slightly,
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean,
slightly
you just move
adjusted.
them down by a quarter of
Yeah.
the
Ooh,
distance.
that's easy.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's easy. And yeah.
So can you print this at that place?
Curious Forge. Yep.
Curious Forge.
Yeah.
So if you get the correct size that we need,
Mm-hmm.
we could do
We're
this
on our
fairly
way.
easy, right?
We're on our way. Yeah.
Let's do it,
Yeah.
and then we can keep it at my house.
we could make multiple of them. We could
make
give
2
them
of
to
them, I
our
guess.
friends.
Yeah. But yeah, I love the look of this thing. I mean,
Yeah.
if we could build that, I'd be very happy.
I would be happy to build one for you, Keith, that you can then
Let's do it, man.
contemplate upon. And
I'll buy the wire
all right.
if you provide the frame, and then we'll wrap that sucker up and.
Let's do it. I'm glad that you're excited about this because I think your excitement and enthusiasm is helping move this thing forward. I've like
You've had this on your mind for how many years, Thomas?
years, so many years.
Right.
When I first bought my first 3D printer, must have been, I don't even know. It's on it's early in my Instagram feed. Way in the beginning is when I was building my 3D printer.
Yep.
So
10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Let's find it.
Yep.
It's got to be, my phone's not near here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, 15 years, let's
15 years ago.
say. Ish.
Yep. There's some value and power to advancing a project that's been on your mind for that long.
Seriously.
I think, so.
And I think to me, I'm much more of a team player,
It's a lot
than
easier,
a solar
man.
operator.
Individual.
Yeah.
Is,
The synergy and the mutual resonance
right.
between 2 people working on it.
And
For sure.
I just find this figure fascinating for whatever reason.
For
So-
whatever reason.
Well, yeah. I mean,
There's something there.
Even if you didn't tell me all this stuff about it.
Yeah.
Even if we hadn't talked about its resonating qualities,
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful sculpture,
Yep.
right? And there's something really elegant and beautiful about the
Mm-hmm.
way it just works, man.
Yeah.
The fact the chirality of it, the dual
Mhm.
symmetries, and man, I think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now that we talked about the idea that this may actually have something to do with anti-gravity and all that, man, it's like yeah, I want one of these things.
All right. Well, maybe I should not upload this video now that we're talking about these anti-gravity and energy.
Well, yeah, we got a
and
little carried away, maybe, but at the same time,
just don't want to attract
it's
attention to ourselves.
a figure that inspires.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
We're just a couple of fools out in the woods, talking about nonsense. So
Pretty much. Yeah.
no threat to anybody.
No, of course not. For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially Republicans.
Right. They need the most help. Oh, those poor political party
I know.
cult members,
Yeah. The only color I see in terms of politics is green, man.
I see purple.
Purple?
Red plus blue equals purple.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting also, yeah.
The
So green and
purple-
purple, I think, is...
And
a
I
good,
think the animal of
I
that
like that
is
green and
the
purple.
dolphin. Purple dolphin is
Really?
Yeah, you got the red elephant, the blue donkey, and the purple dolphin.
That's not
That's
bad.
the unity party.
I still think a green dragon is...
Oh, I like that too.
is nice.
Yeah.
to throw in there as a political animal.
So
also.
these are modulating forces to the you know,
Right.
resonating to draw some of the energy away from the overpolarization of the red and blue, to the
Yeah.
green and purple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
damn straight.
But I don't believe in party anyway, so
Not
yeah.
unless it's got a couple of good kegs, you know. I mean,
Yeah, there you go.
right.
Song
So-
circle around the fire. That's my kind of party.
Right. So yeah, let's build this thing.
Great. Let's do it.
All right.
Thanks, Keith.
All
Glad
right,
to
man. Yeah, that was great.
have you on board. The resonance. Yeah, we're turning resonance radio into an actual resonance project that can eventually be published on the resonance.org
Well, yeah, we'll
platform.
make progress reports on this
Yeah.
as we build this thing.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
All right, here, you hold one coil. Here, this is a.
I think we can do better than this.
I think so too. There it is.
Nice.
What a
Look at that.
paradox.